We did have Tom Trites. We did have a meeting, Tom Walsh, myself, and David and Bob Kaufman at the Sunrise Bank downtown Minneapolis. And we've got a start on getting the bank account or the account for the Futurist. Uh, our house is a little bit more in order.
We started getting the treasurer able to sign checks on the account, which
And we've also got something of a path towards allowing new members to use digital means of providing the dues, they're submitting their dues. Now, I haven't gone into Meetup. David, have you done the process of trying to uh, send money to the Futurist via Meetup? You know what?
I tried that at one point with a couple dollars and it didn't ever work. We weren't able to actually get it out. But
Well,
I've used PayPal and so I think we can make that work.
all right. Is for an iPhone user, is PayPal an app that I can get download?
Um, I'm not sure.
Okay, well, it probably is.
Do you ever use PayPal?
No, I have Venmo and I have Zelle and I have Apple. I was able to get my Apple Cash to work. I was able to get that $30 out of that. Dean's money now is in sitting in my bank account, and I
Okay,
sent you an email yesterday
right.
wanting to know how you wanted me to give it to you.
I know how to deal with checks. I'm not quite sure how to deal with PayPal, but why don't we use um, a couple dollars of that and see if we can transfer it to my PayPal. And if we can, then I can do it from there to Sunrise.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll go ahead and get PayPal started. I might as well. Um, in order to get the um, Apple Cash to work for me, I had to give it my bank's routing number and my account number for my checking account.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like doing that, but I have to assume at some point that Apple has its act together with regards to encryption and yada yada yada.
Right. Good morning, Eric.
Oh, hello.
We think we have at least started a, a way to transfer money across PayPal to the Minnesota Futurists or through Apple Pay. I don't know if either of those would work for you. And it's possible we want to just go on to random bits at this point. Does anybody have any technological random bits as opposed to Minnesota Future random bits? Oh, and I did post your presentation next week, each time, on the future of Linux. Is that still
That's still going to be it.
okay?
Hmm.
Was there enough to be of interest?
Um, oh, I can talk about the history and future of Linux for 2 hours without.
Tom, do you know, does the name Bill Joy ring a bell with you?
Yes.
Yeah. Um, I guess being steeped in the ideas of in the tradition of animation, um, Sun Microsystems was the computer of choice for Pixar's rendering farm, and there was a tight kind of a um, coming together with Steve Jobs participating with Pixar, Bill Joy's participation with Pixar, Ed Catmull's participation with being the CEO of Pixar. Of course, you had John Lasseter, who was the head animator for Pixar. But obviously, Unix was the operating system that was the top of the line, or the operating system of choice at
Yeah.
that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Linux is just a cousin of Unix. I think Unix was the, and there's different families of the Unix within the Unix. Uh,
Oh yeah.
and I think Bill Joy was he the Berkeley version of Unix or something like that?
At a guess, Bill Joy would have been in the BSD camp. So,
Berkeley Standard Distribution.
yeah.
Yeah, Bill Joy was instrumental in creating Berkeley Unix.
Um, there, I don't know how many flavors of Unix. What did we use? Oh, well, yeah. At Sperry, we used straight Unix.
You used what?
We used pure Unix.
Okay,
Being a Bell Labs contractor,
gotcha.
we had the real thing. And kind of looked down on the others. But as I got out in the world, there were
Lots
I
of
don't
those.
know how many flavors of Unix there were.
And then
Probably
Linux.
100 major ones.
Yeah.
The first one I installed at home was Slackware, which was, God, came on 18 floppies. And I put it on the bridge board of my Amiga. But Slackware is not Linux. It's its own kind of little tree. Although if you're just using it, you're not going to notice the difference. There's the people think of Unix as being a tree, but I think a better description is that it's a prairie that has trees in it. Because there are also, I don't even know if I could count all of the Linux variations and their various crossbreedings into and out of BSD, let alone the isolated Unix standing over there in the corner like the great, 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 great grandfather. But as the companies a number of companies have tried to corner the Linux market. But
For instance,
Red Hat is the first one that comes to mind. But Mefius and Al-Anon, that was a group from Germany. They did not realize that Al-Anon had a different meaning in the United States. The by they saw Linux as being a great profit center. That was their universal thing, is that if we can control Linux, then we can, this is great cash cow. But Linux just kept going on, it pretty much ignored them, is what it did. You want to take our code and sell it, then okay, then you do that and you support it, and we'll keep on improving it, and you can't stop us. And so most companies, after a couple of rounds, most of the companies who tried to make a profit center out of Unix failed. This was always announced to the world that Unix is dead, Unix is dead. And no, it was this tribe of money-grubbing capitalists has died. Linux keeps on up to 6.3 now, I think. And the squabbling continues. And the biggest problem in the future I see for Linux, really, is Torvalds. Because he is still the godfather, and all of the code goes through him. And if someone was to kill him, or he was to get ill, or...
How old is he?
I think he's in his 60s.
That's younger than I am.
Yeah, younger than I am too. But eventually the Linux group is going to have to move to having some other final endorser.
Well-
But there is talk actually that with advances in AI, that Linux might become self-endorsing.
Huh.
But I think that's a pipe dream so far.
well, the problem with anything that is self-endorsing is support.
Well, Thorvald's job currently seems to be as a referee. This group wants to do something this way. This group wants to do it that way. And there's this cranky group in the corner that wants to do it a third way. And he has to choose which way to go. And he frequently finds ways to leave both sides content. Not happy, but content.
Good enough.
But
Well-
it's an ongoing battle, and it pretty much has to be. If chip designers would stop making improvements.
Well, I have an interesting Bill Joy story, if you're interested.
Okay.
I am.
Yeah.
I was, well, let's see, this was in the late 80s, early 90s. It was when Sun was a startup. And I was working at Rosemont and running all of their engineering computing on a PDP-11 running Berkeley Unix.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into a major problem with the version we were running. And I don't even remember what it was, but it was something that kind of impacted our use of the operating system. So I did what you did in those days to try to get some support. And I called the Berkeley people, which was basically at this stage a bunch of graduate students who were supporting and putting out new versions of Berkeley Unix. And I said, in your version thus and so, you got this major glitch right here. And the guy I was talking to said, "Oh, wow, thanks for reporting that. What's your fix?" Yeah. And I explained that I was trying to run a department and I had not come up with a fix for them. But I said, the problem is right here. It's right here in this piece of C code that you compile to get the operating system. And so, this guy goes into thinker mode and he says, I think Bill Joy was working on that before he left to set up Sun Microsystems. And here's his phone number.
Oh,
So I end up calling the startup, Sun Microsystems, and asking for Bill Joy. Got on the phone and I explained the issue to him. And he said, yeah. He said, I got a whole bunch of notes that came with me from Berkeley. And the fix is actually in there. Let me call you back in an hour. I'll have to go find it. So he calls me back in an hour and he says, I don't know, it's like 14 lines of C code. Do you want me to mail it to you or do you want me to read it over the phone?
oh my God.
Yeah. Well, come on. I mean, when you run Berkeley Unix, there is no real support, at least at that time. And
Still isn't.
what?
There still isn't.
Okay. Well, and Bill was doing me a big favor.
But yeah.
work from his previous job.
I saw
So,
Bill Joy as being kind of the rock star of the coding cadre.
Mm-hmm.
He was a welcome guest at SIGGRAPH events when I recall being at SIGGRAPH, and he's a pretty handsome chap who seems to have a level head about things. Um, and I think he codes it. He codes really fast. Someone said that he codes it at something like 60 words a minute or something like that. So just phenomenal guy. I still and I get a chance when I'm at these computer animation conventions to hear all the backstories about characters and so forth. Um, Jim Blinn, who was a big rock star, and there's a algorithm for doing lighting and shading in animation called the Blinn shader,
Mm-hmm.
and there's also an algorithm that does the same thing with the um, cat mole. There's cat mole shading and blend shading. Then these are all light tracers or ray tracers for calculating the way objects render, shading and shininess, reflection, bump mapping, and all that kind of stuff. And um, so in the same, in this, like I said earlier, I remember students would come for me into the program for animation, convinced that all the animation that you saw Pixar doing was rendered on Macintoshes and so forth, and I'd have to get them kind of straightened out. I said, no, they're rendered on Sun Microsystems, and the animation is rendered with Silicon Graphics. You got Jim Clark in there with SGI, and the only people that use Macintosh at Pixar are the secretaries that are um, in the administrative end of the thing.
okay, could I interrupt just a moment? I ran into a piece of information for our random bits that I think you guys would find really interesting. And it's a new surgical technique that I think, had it been available at the time, would have kept Hank alive.
Huh.
So, I find it significant. Hank was diagnosed like 3 or 4 years before he died with bladder cancer. And his doctors treated it very aggressively because it had not metastasized. And, if they could get this to go into remission, he'd be fine. And so, I mean, they treated it with chemotherapy and radiation and, damn near killed him with the treatment. But it went into remission. And he was just fine for the next 3-4 years, whatever it was. And then the cancer came back. It was no longer in remission. And they started this really aggressive treatment, get it to go back into remission again. And it didn't work. And it weakened Hank to the point that he went into his final decline and died. And the surgical technique that I have been hearing about is one where they simply replace the bladder. I mean, they cut it out and throw it away. So there's no chance of it's cancer metastasizing.
Mm-hmm.
And what they replace it with is some really creative stitching on a chunk about yay long of your large intestine. Don't complain, David. You're looking very iffy. But the people who have done this have had excellent results in keeping people alive.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking down my nose at the idea that that sort of surgery would keep people alive. I'm sort of persuaded that um, cancer is normal and your immune system keeps it under control if it's strong enough. And
I believe you're correct there.
keeping it strong enough is more important than fixing the problem after it's gotten out of hand. In terms of my preference for how to deal with those kinds of problems. But it is after 10, and I'm
Oh.
supposed to be doing a presentation this morning.
Okay.
And
Well, I
David,
will
are you going to
mention
be
that,
are you
that
going to be
this-
giving the presentation, David? I guess I was going to say your microphone is a little bit hard to hear.
I'm sorry about that. I'll try.
More than a little bit.
Oh.
I'm real.
And I also wanted to ask Carol a question. It was last week. I gave you my email. I guess it was about the cryonics, and you said you were going to send information. I just want to know if you've sent that yet, or it was about
no, I haven't
people in-
sent it. I ended up in the
and-
hospital having my knee taken out, and
Ooh.
Okay.
yeah, I'm home about third day
Okay.
from
I'll
knee
hope you're-
replacement surgery.
hope you're
So
doing-
let me just okay. Yes, I want to do that, and there's actually a note somewhere, but what I
it's
would
about a
like
Minnesota
to do
cryonic.
is post your email address to the chat.
Okay, just put it in the chat. Yeah, because I think gave it to you last time, but just put it in the
I
chat.
do understand, but
Well,
it has kind of been lost in the hassle of being in the hospital and getting my knee
Okay.
fixed and everything like that.
All right. I'm gonna put it in now.
Ah, great. Okay, and one really great thing, David, about this technique is that it does not require you use immunosuppressants because it's yours.
right.
So anyway,
Oh, David, I thought I saw that somewhere that Bob Kaufman was going to be the main presenter on this, and I haven't seen him at meetings at all. Is he still participating? And
A little bit.
Oh.
For topics that interest him.
well, I thought certainly economics and manufacturing would.
I don't see him here, so.
Oh.
No, actually, this is a carryover from last time when I had some videos that we didn't get to.
Oh.
Tom?
Saw his name associated with this topic here and somewhere on the site.
I need to chime in on what Carol was talking about, even though we haven't started. My wife died of bladder cancer. She had the robotic surgery to replace her bladder with intestine.
she had this surgery.
Ooh.
Yes, and she was in remission for some time, but apparently there were some stray cancer cells around there. What we noticed, I don't know, maybe 3 years after the surgery, her eyelid was drooping. Turns out she had some lesions in the brain that had originated from her bladder and her original bladder, I guess. And despite different treatments, it just kept spreading. So it's not a guarantee,
Oh, no, no, no. But it sounds like in your wife's case, it had already metastasized
Yeah.
before they took it out. So,
Yeah, they thought they had caught it in time, but apparently had not.
and, I mean, that's obviously, I can't guarantee that that hadn't happened with Hank, but, according to his doctors, they didn't think it did.
What eventually got her was when it got into her liver and started blocking up her bile ducts. And at that point, it was pretty untreatable.
At that point, what?
It was pretty untreatable.
Yeah, these things are rough.
She couldn't get a liver transplant. So they do. And U of M is one of the world leaders in that. My wife had a failed liver.
Well, considering the other stuff going on and the state of her health, they thought that was not a good idea.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, once that darn cancer starts doing its good, you cease to become a good candidate for these things that could be temporarily life saving. But man, so this topic is a real Debbie Downer. What have we got going that's any happier? We've really lost people to cancer.
I had talked last week about a little bit about a presentation that Novel Harari had done where he talked about providing more clarity to the discussion and three issues that he felt were worthy of discussion, being nuclear war, global limitations, and technology.
What did he mean by global limitations?
Well, I posted a video on today's meetup description where one of the longtime people involved in limits to growth talked about 9 different global limits, if you will, of which climate change is only one. And we're either pushing the boundaries or over the boundaries on 6 of the 9, I think. But rather than spend our time talking about that, I thought I would limit us more to U.S. and Chinese manufacturing and technology, which was the third issue that he was discussing, if you will, or pointing us toward. And in particular, I'd like to talk about some of the trends in technology that affect manufacturing or that manufacturing affects. It's complicated. It's complicated even to talk about. But the trends are not mostly going the directions that we'd like to see them go, I think. And so I have a few little tidbits that I thought might spark some discussion. And I wondered, Tom, can you play video, or Tom Walsh, you've played some videos for us in the past with good success.
Yeah. By the way, I didn't see any videos posted on the meetup site.
Oh,
I did.
I did.
I
Yeah.
thought there were 3.
Well,
Planetary boundaries, navigating our limits was
I'll
20
get out of
minutes.
meetup and back in, I guess.
Well, just if you can just open another tab with the meetup, can the rest of the world learn from China's global energy dominance, and why it's impossible to manufacture in America. And I wanted to play the middle of those three. It's about 15 minutes. And I don't know if most of you are familiar with engineering with Rosie, who's an Australian engineer and has done some interesting overview videos in the past. I have a fair amount of respect for her sources and her way of presenting it, if you will. And if you need that, I can put that.
I've got a video ready to show. It's the planetary boundaries. Is that the first one you want to see?
No, I don't want to see that one. I want to see the next one.
Okay, I'll have that next thing. I copied all your files from the meetup into my Word and into a Word file here.
I recommend planetary boundaries quite highly, but I think we could spend the whole time talking just about that particular issue.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, another time perhaps. I think there's probably enough to talk about on this one too, but we won't spend the whole time on it either. I think. We'll see.
So are you going to show that, Stan? Okay. I did get the list up this time when I went back in the meetup.
Okay. Well, Stan's recording this, aren't you, Stan? Very much. Okay. We don't necessarily pay much attention to the energy basis for our economy. But gross domestic product tracks energy use much more closely than it tracks, what would we say, prosperity in the economy, which is to say, when there are accidents or disasters, those actually help your gross domestic product, generally. They don't necessarily help your individual prosperity or your human happiness. One of the things I like about Tony Seba's Rethink X information is that they're trying to look more broadly than just gross domestic product. Carol?
Yeah. Oh, okay. If you can believe their announcements as to what they're up to, China is also very much the leader in solar power from space.
Yeah. And we'll get into that a little bit, but not very much.
Okay.
The question is, if or when solar power from space will be less expensive and more efficient than solar power here on Earth. Because basically, solar and wind are sun power. I like to say with a 93 million mile safety factor.
Yes, but of course, if you're putting up the satellite in geosynchronous orbit, it's not 93 million miles away.
No, and in fact, the last, 22,000 miles from space to Earth has some efficiency issues, and there will undoubtedly be some cost issues associated with that.
Oh, God, yes. Not to mention the pollution issue of launching all those rockets.
Ideally, that would be done by robots out in space with materials from space. But who knows? We haven't gotten there yet, so that's an issue for the future.
Perhaps with materials from the moon.
Perhaps, yeah. Or from the asteroids. We don't know yet.
Well, what China is proposing currently involves launching a lot of material by rocket.
Yeah.
I mean, they've even pointed to the rocket they're going to use in their launching.
Dean, you had your hand up, but you're muted.
Yeah, I have my hand up. Real quick. I like to keep it light. I'm not very funny, but I'm very punny. David, you said dams, hydroelectric creates problems downstream, and that pun just went right through. Yeah, downstream and downstream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, I just wanted to point out real quickly that wind power is solar power. Period.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's just another form of solar power.
Yep. Eric?
Yeah, I had two questions about quantization. It would be feasible now to focus, build with robots huge solar mirrors and then beam concentrated focused solar energy down into uninhabited spots on Earth to run generators. But how much would that beam add to warming of our atmosphere and Earth, which is a problem already? And then if that's not practical, solvable, then way back years ago, back to Arthur C. Clarke, he said if nanotech could advance enough to produce cable with enough tensile strength, they could theoretically drop cables down from satellites all the way down to Earth, and couldn't we transmit solar power down that way without warming the atmosphere on the way? And does anybody have any info on that?
Two
We
big
don't hear about that
problems.
anymore. Those I forgot what they call them. Those cables that would
Space elevators.
space elevators. Yeah, I haven't heard anything about those for years. Is there any progress?
There's a big problem with the space elevator, which is why you haven't heard much in the last few years, which is if a terrorist or an accident manages to cut off the asteroid that is holding this stuff up, it falls down and wraps itself around the planet and does incredible damage. That's mostly why people have gotten away from the whole tether thing.
Well, but there's also the question of how much would it cost to do it, and you have to pay that cost up front before you ever get any of the benefits of a space elevator.
Well, this is true, but it has largely been abandoned because of the enormous danger that, to a terrorist or an accident.
Yeah. It has its
and-
downside.
What?
It has its downsides.
Yeah. And I got my hand up.
It's falling downside, yes.
One of them is the FAA.
And
FAA is the downside. And by the way, FAA is falling apart.
okay, the other, what was it, Eric who was proposing these two,
Yes.
asking about them?
Is there any solution to the beaming solar energy down from
Okay.
collecting and focusing?
That is really not a problem because it is energy that was going to hit Earth anyway.
Well, not necessarily. It could be energy that I guess they could get ones that
allow me to finish. What they are doing is simply concentrating the beam, as opposed to this energy kind of spreading out across the face of the earth and warming things up and they are enormously concentrating the beam so that they can beam it down as a power
Yeah.
source. But it's stuff that would hit Earth anyway.
Well, not necessarily. Maybe they could arrange that it would be stuff that would otherwise, because they're 22,500 miles up, and whereas Earth's only a radius of 8,000 miles. And the
22,000
radius of the satellites is like 23,000 miles. So I guess they
22,300.
couldn't capture it ones that were aiming at Earth when they're when the satellite is aligned with the sun and Earth. I guess they could use the energy they capture then.
Well, the point is that they can tip this mirror, and so they can send this concentrated beam to, you know, this place on Earth, and then that place on Earth, and then another place.
Yeah.
I mean, there's restrictions to the angle, but it's not just to one spot on Earth.
Yeah, but then visualize what's going on. This is far out in space, and it would be generally capturing solar energy that was going to miss Earth, because they're up to like at a radius of 23,000 miles from the center of the Earth, whereas
It's geosynchronous orbit.
yeah, but
And the reason they use
what's going to hit
geosynchronous
Earth is
orbit
only has a radius of about 8,000 miles from the center of the Earth.
Your point is well taken. This would be adding to the energy that comes to the Earth, but for the foreseeable future, in relatively small quantities compared to what actually hits the Earth presently. We're not, the sun provides more energy in an hour than we use all year.
Yeah, and they could capture energy only when the satellite is aligned in a line with the sun and the Earth, which would capture energy that was already going to hit the Earth.
Yeah, you're right.
No.
A
Yes.
short period of time when it would be intercepting energy that would hit the Earth.
Yeah,
Because that geosynchronous orbit rotates around with the
Right.
Earth's rotation.
yeah, it's far bigger than the Earth. So it would the vast majority of stuff that would energy that hits the satellite would not have hit the Earth, but they could arrange to only capture that energy which would have hit Earth anyway.
No. Yeah. My concern, and I think this is a discussion that we really don't want to get off into, but my concern is with beaming that quantity of energy from a satellite to Earth is two or threefold. One, is it going to cost more than solar energy on Earth would, in which case
Why?
we don't need it yet. There are obviously going to be some losses in changing it from light to microwave and beaming it down as microwave because it gets through the Earth's atmosphere at a higher percentage rate. So losses and costs. Let's put that form of solar energy off on the side and see how the improvements come along in both space, science, and efficiency.
But remember, it's pure unfiltered energy. It's not reduced by the atmosphere or fluctuating as it would be.
The most common suggestion is beaming it down, as David says, with microwaves.
Okay, but you've
There
got
are
a
other
limited amount of free
possibilities.
energy there to grab. Almost
What?
yeah, they've got this vast amount of continuous energy there to grab and focus. And also, Elon's got the cost of putting stuff in orbit down to about $10 a kilo, and I'm sure he could get that even cheaper if he tries.
Well, It'll
And
keep,
remember, you don't have gravity. You could make these huge, gigantic, thin mirrors up there. Um,
Right. And there is an intermediate possibility between launching all this hardware on rockets and getting all your materials and such from space or from the moon, and that is the catapult bit. And that way you have no pollution, and you launch loads from Earth on a catapult that goes up a mountain and intermediate.
which we also don't have yet. And then there's spin launch that rotates it in. Spin launch is a brand name for a different kind of launching from Earth. But let's not get into that either.
Okay.
Can we get back to,
I'm enjoying the trialogue, but Tom has had his hand up for Tom for a whole long time, and me too.
Okay.
H-Tom?
Yeah, an orbit is centered on Earth's center of mass. And there's no rule that says it can't go from being ahead of the Earth in its orbit, under, and then behind the Earth, and around like that. It's normal to the vector to the sun. So it can scoop up all sorts of energy that would never hit the Earth. This notion that it's only taking stuff that would always fall there anyway. No, that's just
right. But we
It
could,
can be done, but you don't have to do it.
yeah.
why would you do it
Exactly.
anyway? Next.
So this is my question to Carol again and again and again, because I know this is her power from outer space is her thing. Is there a current need for that? Do we not have God knows how many square kilometers to put up solar panels, and can we not supply our? Are we talking 100 years from now, 500 years from now, or are we talking? Oh, we need this energy from space tomorrow. I don't see it with solar.
Okay. Right now, there is an incredible upsurge in building power plants.
Only because of stupid AI or smart AI. We'll find out. Yeah.
Well, for two reasons. One is AI. The other is the whole Bitcoin shitcoin. And
I understand. Yeah.
at least with the AI, you get something out of it. You get AI. With the Bitcoin, you're just diddling and wasting energy in order to prove you did it.
I'll use the phrase as technological masturbation, but yeah, people
I
get
agree
on it,
with you.
Yeah. All right, but anyway, I mean, can we not, with conventional solar and wind and storage and batteries and all that, without putting ropes into space and all this rigmarole, can we not supply our energy needs for the next 100 years or 75 years or 150?
People are saying no.
All right, well,
They're saying every time you build a new computer center,
yeah.
you have to build a new power plant.
Well, then what I say to silicon tar pits is you don't get a permit to even put a shovel in the ground on your data center until you have your energy supply paid for by you. That's the rule. It's like, in San Diego here, you can't build a housing development unless you pay for the freeways to get there first. And you see, you get your energy. You can't just go buy a bunch of land for free from Ohio with government subsidies and build a data center to keep a few custodians working, and expect us to supply you that energy. You supply your energy. You do it, private sector, right? Good old
I
private
think
sector.
I think it is a useful approach.
Yeah,
I
I know.
think it would be gotten rid of by all those lawyers who
Uh,
want to play partisan.
Speaking of lawyers and presidents, then I'll shut up.
Okay.
Jimmy Carter was not, by far, not the worst president we have ever had. By a long, long shot.
That was not my opinion. That was my colleague who was an
Right.
engineer.
Was he the most effective? No. Was he the smartest IQ wise? More than likely.
Probably.
Yep. And I met him.
Up there in the top.
And he is real. You see what you get.
I served under him.
Yeah. Anyway, I'll shut up.
Oh, the downside of not subsidizing AI at the expense of maybe other aspects of the economy is that we automatically concede AI victory to China and therefore world domination.
Maybe.
Well, why not?
Well, or
They're willing to pay
possibly
the costs of AI, and we're not.
Possibly
Anyway, they're
China-
gaining. Over half of the peer-reviewed theoretical articles on AI are now published by Chinese.
Right.
Just
So it's survival of the willing.
in peer-reviewed journals. It isn't just
okay, and possibly China is opening itself up to being destroyed and or taken over by nasty AI before we are.
If it takes China, it'll take the whole world.
Not necessarily.
Maybe.
Well, probably.
Hard to work on AI motivation, but
that
What's the
segues
amount?
rather nicely into one of my next points, but H-Town, did you have something you wanted to contribute before I...
With the amount of fake information being published as learning, we've got a problem, but there's a different problem. The idea that we somehow have excess energy.
yeah.
All of the energy that comes to the earth from the sun is used. If you are taking it and using it, you have taken it from some other process that would have used it anyway. If you are not, if you plant solar collectors, you are not planting corn, so to speak.
That's not true,
That's
Tom.
all.
There's a lot of desert areas and so forth
Oh.
that are not being used productively.
They're not being used by us, but they are used by the planet.
Yeah.
We
But-
don't understand the planet's full network yet by a
Yes.
long shot.
This is absolutely true. But most of the solar energy that hits the Earth is transformed in some fashion.
Ah.
Energy is neither created nor destroyed.
But, yes, but, the plants use roughly 2% of the energy that impacts them for producing more plants. The rest is lost as heat and eventually gets radiated out from the surface of the Earth, or we would heat up some more like Venus does. So it's a little more complicated than that.
Natural air conditioning.
Yep. Carol and Stan, I'm not sure which of you was first.
Dan was.
And
Okay.
I just wanted to point out regarding the form of government that China has and how that makes it easier for them to do their high-speed rail.
Yeah.
They don't have to worry about property rights and getting permission from governments and or states and so forth to do this and that. They're just their litigation is just more clean for them to say this is what we're going to do. I mean, I remember discussions about about Paris and London and the cities back in the day when they started to transition from no sewers to sewers in downtown Paris and in London and so forth. There were lots of people's rights that were being violated, but they were being saved from cholera and so forth. I guess I think there's two people I want to quote here, Peter Thiel and Robert Kaufman. Yes, our Robert Kaufman. Peter Thiel, there's a video with him saying that we'll never, libertarians, or we'll never, we being the technical savvy, will never be able to win in a democracy. Therefore, we should be using some form of technology to sort of hack the system to be able to get what we want. And I think Bob Kaufman often also has said recently that the way we're going to be able to achieve the goals that we need to transition to sustainable energy will require some form of oligarchy, or not oligarchy, but
Technocracy.
technocracy, or the totalitarianism.
Okay.
Go ahead, Carol.
Oh, okay. I want to point out that for those of you who are suggesting a technocracy, that, you know, we have technocrats instead of lawyers running the government and such, that you can't have it the physical sciences people just. And somebody suggested, you know, mathematics and physics and blah, blah, blah. And these days, you've got to have chemistry, and most particularly biochemistry, because most of the really important research that is being done today is being done in the bio area. The new drugs, the fact that the 2024 Nobel Prize in Chemistry went to one chemist and then the team of computer programmers who gave us AlphaFold. Yeah. You're going to play technocrat games, you have got to include the biochemists.
Well,
Go ahead, David.
Demis Hassabis got his degree in brain research, by the way.
Who?
Demis Hassabis.
Oh.
His actual training is in brain research biology, not computer science or
Neuroscience, perhaps?
Yeah,
yes,
neurology.
neuroscience, yes.
Neuroscience.
Of his bio. And that's good.
Certainly comes under the bio umbrella.
Right. It's in part of biology. Yes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you were going to get seriously into we need a technocracy, you can't leave out the bio people these days.
And the only hope of controlling it, as I see it, in my opinion, is that you have to make it more like the human brain. First, understand the human brain, which has other vast benefits, like 40% I just saw last night of people over 65 are going to become senile. Well, why is there not a massive, serious effort to finish understanding the brain using AI?
There is.
Not serious. It's glacial. Progress in understanding the brain is glacial. I can understand it.
Another topic for another day, I think.
Station of our brain. Not being able to understand our brain.
Are you able to see my tech spot
Yeah.
particle.
China leads the U.S. in research of 37.
Yep, that one. This came out about 2 years ago, March of 2023. Made something of a splash at the time. I believe it was actually on the front page of the New York Times. The particular Australian think tank that put out this report said, let's look at the trends. 20 years ago, the United States led in most of these 44 critical and emerging technologies. At the time they put out this report, they said China led in 37 of 44, including AI, defense, and key quantum tech areas. And they have a one-page visual snapshot of ASPI is the Australian think tank that did this report. I think it was either last year or this year, they upgraded from 44 technology areas to 62 or something like that. And China is still leading in most of those areas, according to this think tank, which their research methodology was to look at peer-reviewed journal articles, I believe, and who was publishing most of the articles, or who was publishing most of the articles that were referenced by other articles. Stan?
Well, I think that the good news is that a lot of the academia, in quotes, within the Chinese communities and within the Chinese culture are from people who have studied in the United States. And so I think that there is a academy, there's a possibility for there being some more mutual consensus within that group of engineers and on the leading edge that would be potentially, I mean, that's the beauty of science, is that science is true for everybody, and it works for everybody. And that way, I think that there is a point to where you could call it best practices in terms of how to take the leading edge of the scientific research and to be able to implement it. And I think that the United States should be able to stay up with the Chinese, even though they have a higher level of volume of people working on it. The actual number of it goes Nobel laureate style or Nobel laureate class discoveries may or may not be necessarily as high.
Situation's changing.
Pie in the sky.
William.
Looking at your listing of publications, the volume may not reflect quality unless quality is factored into these. Volume is a unreliable indicator of technologically superior.
What is a reliable indicator?
That's another good discussion topic. But your point is absolutely correct, Chris.
Moving the mark ahead, moving the mark forward, taking a step that's like, for example, what Einstein did to gravity was an improvement over what Newton did. I mean, taking the goals a little bit higher. But William, you expressed exactly my thought, is that volume is not a particularly a good indicator of quality.
Tom, you had a comment?
Yeah, just that what Stan was talking about has been true, but it's changing rapidly. Basically, we're kicking out a lot of our grad students and postdocs,
Yeah.
expelling them, and there's basically an attack on science and education coming out now from this administration. And I think the motivation is that they feel that it's easier to lead people who are uninformed and stupid. So I think that's where we're headed. We're abdicating our position in science and a number of other areas.
We used to have one of the best education systems in the world, and we're trying, apparently, to limit the best minds in the world. We're trying to discourage them from coming to the United States for their graduate education.
Not just discouraging, we're kicking them out.
Right.
Yeah. And many of those stayed here rather than going back home with their education.
In the past,
Right.
yeah.
Many did, but anyway,
Einstein, for example.
I'm after Tom before Carol.
I'm done.
Okay. Yeah, but I feel like sometimes I feel I understand this, hands across the sea and yada yada yada, but sometimes I feel like a university plantation for the frickin' Chinese. And that they're going to come over here and use our educational system that we created and for their own benefit. Yes, will some of them choose to stay here and help us? Yes. Will many of them be spies for the Chinese Communist government? Yes. Many, many, many. Thousands and thousands of engineers and scientists that we have adopted and become, quote, Americans are agents of their government. That's just a fact. And yeah, but I believe in the idea of cultural exchange and all that. But
I will not give you that as a fact.
Playing ping pong with Mao Zedong did not sell 200 billion refrigerators in China like Nixon promised. That's all I'm saying. Stuff sounds good on paper, but you have to consider your opponent's motives.
Yes, but
motivations. Yeah.
You have claimed as a fact that a majority of these people are spies, and I
did not say a majority. There are tons of them. There is a fifth column. Wake up. Don't be naive. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
I did not say a majority. Most of them are wonderful, wonderful people. Good Lord. Don't put words in my mouth, please, Carol.
Thank you. And some of the best institutions for education in the country were in California before.
Yeah, which is close to China, by the way. Yeah.
Before you changed the rules in about.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Yeah, I get all of that, but there is a competition for those seats at Berkeley, right? And we were, I believe, we were ceding it a bit to the pay to play Chinese, because they can afford it, and the universities were doing that. And these are my universities; I own them. University of California, taxpayer supported. But yeah, they bring in money, they bring in brains, they bring in a whole lot of stuff. But I'm just saying there has to be a balance. That's all I ask for. I'm a middle of the road guy. It's not A or B. The world is not binary.
At the moment, the balance seems to be going China's direction.
Yeah.
Many of these technological and forward-thinking issues.
And I am happy to go toe-to-toe, tete-to-tete with China, even though, they're bigger and, smarter and everything. But at least let's have a semblance of a level playing field, and we do not.
No, there is no level playing field. We can't imagine how we could level the playing field with
So
China.
I'm watching golf right now in Wales. So you're saying the world is more like links golf and not like clay court tennis? Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Yep, yeah. There is no such thing as a level playing field in the real world.
Tom Walsh.
I'll shut up.
Oh, I forgot to
Walsh,
put my hand down.
Tom Trites.
It was 20 years ago that I was tasked with teaching a bunch of PhD candidates in the university's business schools basic algebra. And I went to
Yeah.
eBay and found a collection of 15 of my 7th grade algebra books and used that as a text. These people were going for PhDs in business, but were completely stymied by 7th grade algebra. And this was 20 years ago. I haven't seen any improvement in junior and high school math training. I've seen lots of new programs, but I haven't seen any good results. Right? And
Yeah, no, if you're done, yeah, or I can interject.
Yeah.
I agree. There's STEM this, STEM that, STEM that, STEM that, and they're all dummies. They can't add 2 + 2 and get 4. You know, they play at it. They make little robots. They drive around the lab, and But yeah, in just terms of pure education, knowing the basic things like just basic algebra, which you need to compute your gas mileage and compare it to your EV mileage. Over their heads, completely gone. It might as well be rocket science.
The best of them are doing it.
Yeah.
But they're a peak.
Right.
And
you are talking about an inadequacy in our
elementary grade school education.
Well,
yes.
China, let me interject. China, there is a high value placed on being smart and getting good grades and getting into a university, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Here, I don't know. Here it's more like a punch your ticket. Yeah. You got a degree from Berkeley, really? Yeah. Okay, great. What did you learn? Nothing. Okay, fine. And I think that's where China trumps us. I mean, it's a cultural thing. I mean, education and doing better, et cetera, et cetera. It's just built into the culture. And when you only have 1 or 2 kids, by God, one or 2 of them are going to do well, period. And the parents invest a lot in their children, and society invests a lot. That's the upside of Chinese culture. But yeah, anyway, I'll shut up.
Tom Walsh.
Yeah, I happen to believe that numeracy is as important as literacy. Unfortunately, especially in the elementary grades, a lot of the teachers, I think, are math phobic, and so they teach fear of math to the kids. But it has big ramifications throughout our society. Just a weird example. I played golf last week. We were in a 4-man scramble tournament format, and our team won some money. And so I was going to divide it up, and this guy pulled out his phone and said, "Here, here's a calculator so you can figure out how much you owe each of us. And I gave him a weird look. I mean, dividing by 4, it's not that hard. But people just, they can't do math anymore. Simple arithmetic. And that's very disturbing to me.
Yep.
Yes, total agreement.
Very disturbing.
I mean,
Lynn. Lynn's got her hand up.
Yeah, so I tutored math. I tutored grade school and middle school math to college freshmen. And my conclusion from about 10 years of that, and God only knows how many students, is that elementary education in math does not take into account developmental readiness to grasp the concepts.
Yep.
Over and over and over again, I had students who could multiply, but they couldn't add. For example. And I blame that on the idea that when addition was taught, they weren't ready for it, and by the time multiplication was taught, they were ready. So our problems in what mathematicians call basic math, calculus, and below, don't come out of high school or college. They come out of elementary school. And if you are not good at, if you are bright and you run into something that you can't get good at, you write it off. That's not important. I don't need that. I'll never use it. And that attitude towards math then just keeps building and building and building throughout the educational experience. It goes back to the very beginning and pushing math on students who do not have the neuron connections to understand what's going on. They can't grok it, and so the bright ones just blow it off. That's what's wrong with our math education. It goes all the way back to that. Thank you.
And we don't pay teachers.
Probably the one profession that requires a college degree that's the lowest paid.
And we don't teach our teachers cognitive development. We don't teach them how to recognize when a student's ready for a subject. It's a lot easier to gloss over being not ready for reading. And in fact, our education system has spent a lot of time studying how to teach reading, but very little time studying how to teach math.
Yeah, by the way,
Thank you all, but let's get back to manufacturing if we could.
Okay.
all right, let's see.
Consider education very important, but we could spend all of the rest of the time we have. I want to go back. Am I still sharing critical technology tracker?
Yes.
You're still sharing, David. You want me to show this last video?
No.
Okay.
No, I want to show you this. Australian Strategic Policy Institute has put this comparison up online, and you can look at various countries and various technologies. And the 64 technologies that they were giving you, they actually have charts and graphs with regard to historical, and obviously that gets you current, and it shows you some of the trends. So who has produced the most research with regard to solar photovoltaic panels?
Okay.
And the 4 countries that you see on this chart.
I don't see, but maybe somebody sees.
All right, it looks like 5 to me.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, I see 5, but
4 and a dotted line.
Floor and everybody else.
Okay.
And 98% other.
Get by year, right. But you can see Stanford University is the fourth National Renewable Energy Lab. I'm sorry, the fifth, and the third is the National Renewable Energy Lab, Switzerland, and the Chinese Academy of Sciences. But this kind of data is available from, oh, come on, techtracker.aspi.org in Australia. So they've been doing these studies now for about 5 years, but you can look at it quite extensively if you're interested in knowing what's happening with the trends. Okay. Dean?
Oh, I guess my hand is still up. I'm way ahead of you. I was talking this about because I heard about the same study about the 47 becoming 62, and we used to be 85, 95%, and now they've increased it to 62, 63, and China is 57 out of 62. That's not a good trend. We are doing something wrong.
Or China is doing something right.
Well, all of the above.
Yeah.
But
the trends seem to be going.
would you rather live in China in a totalitarian state or live here and lose the war?
No.
I'd rather lose and be free. Live free or die.
I'd rather not see the trends continue if we can avoid it.
But how do we avoid that?
Well, that's the question, and
that is the $100 quadrillion question, yeah.
I'd be delighted to have you put together a couple hours for us to talk.
That is the existential question.
Okay. Are you familiar with Clayton Christensen?
Who?
Clayton Christensen.
Fletcher Christian?
No.
Clayton Christensen.
Yeah. I don't do names, but yeah, it rings a bell.
Okay. Yeah, the book he wrote back 20 years ago was The Innovator's Dilemma. And he spent the last 20 years at Harvard teaching management training to Harvard graduates, business school.
Yep.
And he passed away a couple of years ago, but he started this trend that Tony Seba has continued at Stanford that we'll get into again, I think, but not today. Stan?
Seems that I might have found at least one technology where the idea of developing technology that can push the mark forward is extremely important to everything. And that is the ASML process for lithography for semiconductors. That is something that they seem to have a patent or they have a control over. They're using the Carl Zeiss company's lens quality capabilities for their concave lenses. I can't specify all of the details, but they do have a process that gives them an edge over the Chinese, although the Chinese are trying to recover that quickly. But that's...
Are you speaking of Taiwan?
No, I'm talking about mainland China. Taiwan has already got the contracts with ASML, TSMC to do all that. that's, I mean, I'm a little bit be baffled as to how it is that we could allow Taiwan to become the epicenter of the newest and best, the best and the fastest processing in the world, with its threatening, its stance with China.
Because all the smartest Chinese fled Mao Zedong. That's why.
Well, it's got to
Well,
be.
and
There's someone somewhere along the line. Someone should have said, "Are we really going to concentrate all the most significant, powerful computing power in such a vulnerable place?" That's like putting your cash out on a sack in a tree
It's
where
vulnerable
everybody can.
because we, the U.S., chooses to make it vulnerable because we have capitulated to China.
okay, but we didn't make this happen. The
It's
Taiwanese made it
complicated than
happen.
that. And we're, by the way, we're talking about manufacturing here. The best semiconductors in the world are manufactured in Taiwan at this point. And the second best are probably manufactured in South Korea or maybe Japan.
Samsung.
Yeah. And the United States is maybe third. We used to be the first.
My theory is that the Chinese are more willing to take the risk of polluting their rivers because fabrication is dirty. And I think that there is a tendency in China. If you were to ask me why I wouldn't want to live in China, is I think it's because it would be sad to see the diminishing of their natural resources being trounced by manufacturing and so on. Go ahead, Dean.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, you're right. Chips and cheap, they kind of sound alike, don't they? Yeah, it's not enough to be able to make chips. You got to make chips cheap. And if you can't make chips cheap and are not willing to do the environmental costs, the human costs, et cetera, to make chips cheap, then you're going to lose the battle. But I believe that is our fault. That is a moral failing, as in we will buy anything at any price, regardless of how or why or who died or who will die because of the manufacturer. And to me, that is immoral. But that's a very whatever philosophical stand. But yeah, cheap is good. Well, not necessarily.
Well, I could go back to McDonough, the cradle to cradle guy from the manufacturing, because I don't think that his ideas are going to be very effective. Because if you try to put an emphasis on being able to recycle at the manufacturing level, it's going to add to the cost of the product, and therefore it doesn't reach it's a race to the bottom for the cost for pricing. You're right, Dean. Making things cheap doesn't make them easy to recycle, doesn't make them easy to clean up the plastic out of the oceans. All of those parts are a result of having already lost the battle of the race to the bottom for ecological security, or and say sanity.
Yeah, and by the way, I take the New York Times news quiz on Fridays, right? I generally fail now. I get a 3 or 4 or 5 if I'm lucky, because I don't watch the news. I don't want to absorb any more of this stuff. My sponge is already polluted. But anyway, so and I also only watch about the only news I watch is I watch a PBS NewsHour on Fridays, where they do the counterpoint thing, and it's kind of like a recap. And there was a conservative guy. They do have conservative guys on there, and yeah, he was pointing out the same thing. He said, so because we want 105-inch TVs for $105, then nothing else matters. See, that is an immoral way of thinking to me. It just doesn't make sense. I was happy with my 20-inch Sony Trinitron, for crying out loud. I don't, but we think that whatever happens in the world, as long as we can get our junk cheaper, then life is good. That's not my philosophy. Sorry.
There was a good South Park episode on Walmart a couple of years, quite a while ago, that really stated that really nicely too.
But the question, if all else is equal, then you want to buy the cheaper version. And all else is normally not equal.
There you go. Yeah, I can always get it cheaper on Amazon, but 40% of all their crap is something that somebody has already returned. So I know how to pick and choose. Yeah, I'm happy to pay a little bit more to know that I'm getting quality. That's just me.
Well, and you
Not only me, but
you have to be prosperous enough in the first place to be able to afford to buy what you want.
that's the other issue. I totally get that. Yeah.
And if you look at the world, most of the world is not that prosperous.
They are not that prosperous. And they go, yeah, easy for you to say, you rich American liberals, progressives.
Yep.
Yeah, easy for you to say. You can have all your food delivered by Jeff Bezos and all that, but they can't do that. I understand that. Yeah,
More than half of the United States cannot do that either.
I know.
We're not even being
Poverty
generous.
begins at home. Poverty begins at home. And I wish that we would deal with the U.S. poverty. And then we would also deal with world poverty. But, good Lord.
Yep.
And what is China doing? They're not doing nothing. China they do a lot of humanitarian yada, yada, yada. And, of course, it always has global strategic economic, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, you talk about mining. They are mining Africa. My God, they've been mining Africa for 20, 30 years. And why? Because we were too stupid to help Africa aid, mine, whatever you want to call it, in our mutual self-interest. The Chinese are not afraid to do that. They go in and they throw yuan and yuan and yuan and yuan and all that crap at them. And the Africans are saying, oh, yeah, well, we used to like the U.S., but China's throwing dollars at us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, which are American and European dollars. That's where they got all their money. They got it from us. They didn't grow it in their rice paddies.
Right. No, they manufactured it. And
for us.
Raw materials, they manufactured products that the world wanted to buy.
Yep.
And then they exported them back to the world.
Yeah, I understand. I get it. Yeah.
Apple was spending $55 billion a year in China.
Apple is you enlighten me to that, Stan. Apple is a big deal, big reason, big chunk of why China is China today.
$55 billion a year from Apple.
Yeah, but you see, I don't care if my $1,100 cell phone costs $1,100 or $1,150, because it would cost $40 more to make it here. It's not going to double in price.
Yes, it is. Probably going to double.
Baloney. That's all software. The software ain't being made in China. I remember clearly when they asked Steve Jobs, so what is this iPhone 1.0 or 0.8 or whatever it was? What does it cost? And he said, what does it matter? I'm not selling you a device. He said, so we get a Connex box full of these. If I said it was $20 or $40, and it was probably somewhere in between that, to get it on the beach on the port at Long Beach, he said, does that make any difference? That is not what we're selling you. We're not selling you a coaster, to put your coffee cup on. We are selling you the software, the innovation, the engineering, and yada yada yada. But no, I've heard these stories, and I understand there is a lot more in the hardware today than there was 15 years ago, or whenever cell phones came out, smartphones. But yeah, I do not believe the retail price. Look, all these tariffs on cars, baloney. No car has gone up in the U.S. I bought a German car, tariff free. They have wiggle room, and there is wiggle room in an iPhone, an Android, etc. So if it costs them $100 to make or $200, they can still sell it for $1,100. Yes, they can. If they can convince their shareholders that that's a good idea.
If the consumer will pay for it, that's selling it.
What I'm saying is they can absorb that. BMW Mini is absorbing the tariffs right now and hoping it'll all just go away.
That's enough of the bloviating or whatever.
Yeah, all right.
Can we get on are there any other technologies you wanted to talk about, David?
Well, I had another video on the list, why we can't manufacture in the United States. And that's so I don't mind not showing it, but in terms of
I'd really like to see it.
Manufacturing.
I want to see it. Can you post it in chat or on Meetup?
I just did.
Okay.
Eric?
Yeah, I was hoping to learn today's something quantitative, basic things like how much can we actually produce iPhone Max here for with the same quality and reliability as China, and but I haven't heard any. Obviously they got highly skilled workers there that work a lot cheaper and longer than American workers. Same with Taiwan Semiconductor. But I want to know quantitatively how close can we come with automation and robotics.
What I heard is it would take 10 years or more to get the systems and manufacturing up and running.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of could we do it, but how long would it take?
David?
A long time.
How much will it cost? It will cost more.
Yeah, it will cost more. I don't care.
David,
you get an iPhone 25. You get an iPhone 12,
No, Carol, we won't have time to play it, and it's not really critical to the discussion. But it does point out some of the difficulties and the time it would take and the reason it would cost more to be manufacturing the same product in the United States that the Chinese are delighted to produce and sell us at the price that they can afford to support their workers.
H. Tom's hands up.
Yep.
The simple answer is we cannot. We just can't. In 10 years, we might be able to, but now, no. No, it's not possible.
Why?
Well, for one thing, the Chinese economy doesn't have to pay people nearly what they have to pay people in the United States as a livable minimum wage. And that depends to some extent on the money.
And that cost should be in a tariff.
And pollution rules,
all of that should be
rules.
built into the price, and we could make them just as cheap as there. And the other thing is that we chose to cede that to China because we wanted something $10 cheaper, $1 cheaper, 50 cents cheaper. We didn't care. Cheap is good. And we ceded all that ability to manufacture. That was our choice. Yeah. And we could have trained people. We're not that much dumber than the Chinese. I mean, our average IQ on the West Coast is probably pretty close to the average IQ on the east coast of China. Let's just say.
Not recent. Have you know
Not
what
recently.
great immigrants
I
are,
get
and
that. I know they're smarter. That's why they scare the living bejesus out of me.
look
But
what was the Dem Party was importing to lock in the
yeah. But what I'm saying is,
80s and 90s,
we'll,
70s,
we'll,
80s IQ people, millions of them, to
I
lock
understand.
in the one party rule.
Yeah, I know. All the smart people out of Africa came 200,000 years ago, and within the last 200 years. Yeah, that's a problem. But we ceded that to China because we're a consumerist society. We like cheap crap cheap. We like decent crap cheap.